Hey everyone, Chris here. So today we are going to complete our look at the general feats in the new Player's Handbook. This comprises the majority of the feats in the Player's Handbook. And in my first two videos, I have shown you 2/3 of the general feats in their entirety. And I'll be showing you the final third in its entirety today. And if you are enjoying this content and you aren't a subscriber for some reason, please consider subscribing. I'm pushing for 100,000 subscribers, and boy, I would really appreciate it. But I don't see any point in wasting time. Let's get right into the last of the general feats. We're going to see some pretty big changes today. So the first feat we have was changed a lot, and that is Ritual Caster. So in the 2014 Player's Handbook, Ritual Caster required Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma score of 13 or higher. I think you actually needed Intelligence or Wisdom in the old Ritual Caster. And then you picked a class and you could learn ritual spells from that class. You got a couple right away. And then you got a ritual book. And then if you found, spell books or scrolls or something like that with rituals on them, you could copy them into that ritual book. And that is no longer the case. Now Ritual Caster is going to allow you to increase one of your mental ability scores. And then you're going to choose a number of level 1 spells equal to your proficiency bonus that have the ritual tag. You always have those spells prepared, and you can cast them with any spell slots you have. The spellcasting ability is the ability increased by this feat. For rituals, that usually doesn't matter. Whenever your proficiency bonus is increased thereafter, you can add an additional level 1 spell with the ritual tag to the spells always prepared with this feature. And then Quick Ritual, this is new. With this benefit, you can cast a ritual spell that you have prepared using its regular casting time rather than the extended time for a ritual. Doing so doesn't require a spell slot. Once you cast a spell in this way, you can't use this benefit again until you finish a long rest. So that's actually taken from the Scribes Wizard. The Order of Scribes Wizard had that very feature as one of their level 2 features. So that has been added to Ritual Caster. So the big takeaway is that if you use Ritual Caster to get some of the higher level rituals like Leomund's Tiny Hut or Phantom Steed, you can't use it for that anymore. These are the spells that you're going to have availability for. I've got my list here. Alarm, Ceremony, Comprehend Languages, Detect Magic, Detect Poison and Disease, Find Familiar, Floating Disc, Identify, Illusory Script, Purify Food and Drink, Speak with Animals, Tensor's Floating Disc, and Unseen Servant. Obviously, the big one on there is Find Familiar, which is probably your best first level spell in the game. But in general, I find this a little less appealing than the old one. Now, one benefit here is that you don't have to pick a particular class spell list. So if you want Ceremony and Find Familiar, you can do that. You couldn't do that with the previous Ritual Caster. The previous Ritual Caster, if you took anything but Wizard with it, I think you're being pretty foolish. But now you don't have to worry about picking a class. If I want Find Familiar that bad, I'd be looking to maybe get Magic Initiate Wizard as my origin feat. If my primary ability score is Intelligence or Wisdom, that's not too hard. If it's Charisma, it's a little harder. But nevertheless, then I'd at least get a couple cantrips to go with it. And general feats are a lot better in general than origin feats are. So I don't know. I don't think this is all that great. Now I will say, if you don't have a wizard in your party, being able to cast a bunch of rituals is something that nobody else is going to be able to do. Now all spellcasters can cast ritually now, but they have to prepare those rituals, and that's not so easy. For some of the classes, and a lot of the ritual spells aren't available on their spell lists. So, if you don't have a wizard and you want to have those ritual spells, then maybe. But I think it's weaker, and, I don't think it's that great. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. Now, here's a feat that was good that got better, and that is Sentinel. All right, so Sentinel, of course, you require 4th level now. You need Strength or Dexterity of 13 or higher, and you will increase your Strength or Dexterity by 1. Then we're going to get Guardian. Immediately after a creature within 5 feet of you takes the disengage action or hits a target other than you with an attack, you can make an opportunity attack against that creature. And you'll notice the yellow highlighting there. That's something I added. It's not written in the spell. Just reminding myself that it used to be a reaction attack. Why does that matter? Because of the next feature, Halt. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, the creature's speed becomes 0 for the rest of the current turn. That didn't happen with the Guardian reaction attack with the old Sentinel feat, because it wasn't an opportunity attack, and this one is. So Sentinel just got a big boost from that, and then another big boost because the old Sentinel feat didn't give you an ability score increase. So this looks really good now. There's so many. I mean, if I am playing a fighter or a barbarian, and or even a rogue, and I'm going to be in melee, there's just so many feats now that I really want. It's going to be very, very hard to select them. But this is very strong, and I've got to give it a 4 out of 5. All right, so straight from Tasha's, we have Shadow Touched, which is basically the same as it appears in Tasha's. I mean, they've added the prerequisite of 4th level or higher. You increase one of your mental ability scores by 1, and then we're going to choose one level 1 spell from the Illusion or Necromancy School of Magic. You can always have that spell and the invisibility spell prepared. You can cast each of these spells without expending a spell slot. Once you cast either spell in this way, you can't cast that spell again until you finish a long rest. You can also cast these spells using spell slots you have of the appropriate level. The spellcasting ability is the ability increased by the spell. So, same as it was in Tasha's. However, one thing I will note is that Wrathful Smite, which is a paladin spell, is now part of the Necromancy School, meaning it applies for Shadow Touched, and you can't use pretty much any other means other than multiclassing into Paladin to get Paladin spells anymore. Even a Bard can't get Paladin spells anymore. So if you were playing a melee character that had spell slots, so maybe something like a Ranger, then Shadow Touched might actually be a decent option for you, just to get Wrathful Smite and the invisibility spell, and you would have some additional spell slots to fuel them. Also, if you were doing something like True Strike, you would be able to combine True Strike with Wrathful Smite, because the True Strike doesn't use a spell slot, so it can be combined with a bonus action spell. Of course, if you cast a bonus action spell without a spell slot, you can cast any spell you want with your action, and it's not a problem now with the new rules. So, I mean, Shadow Touched, I think we all know it's not as good as Fey Touched, and I think it's still not as good as Fey Touched, which I believe I gave 4 out of 5. I do think Shadow Touched looks better than it did just from the availability of Wrathful Smite. There's certain builds, so I think I can give it a 3 out of 5. All right, so this one is going to be painful to a lot of people, especially those who really love their ranged characters. So Sharpshooter has been changed. 4th level or higher, dexterity 13 or higher, increase your dexterity score by 1 to a maximum of 20. Note the old Sharpshooter did not give you a dexterity boost. You can bypass cover, your ranged attacks with weapons ignore half cover and 3/4 cover. The old Sharpshooter did that. Firing in melee, being within 5 feet of an enemy, doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls with ranged weapons. The old Sharpshooter did not do that, so that has been added. And long shots attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls with ranged weapons. So basically, what they have done is they have removed the -5 +10, and in place of it, you're going to increase your dexterity by 1 and be able to fire in melee without disadvantage. And so there are no damage boosts on Sharpshooter. That's the big thing, is often we took Sharpshooter to increase our damage. Now, obviously, if you are avoiding cover penalties or avoiding disadvantage, that does increase your damage, technically speaking. It depends on your table. I find different DMs handle cover in very different ways. Some are very sticky about it, and others are very, they don't really worry about cover too much unless it's really obvious. So that is going to change how valuable the Sharpshooter feat is for you. I do think with the new rules, I'd be very hesitant to make a character that really focuses on a ranged weapon. You're just not going to be as effective. I can totally see taking a character that uses ranged weapons as well as melee weapons and then kind of goes back and forth, which I like. But just a dedicated archer, I don't think is as good anymore. So I would be, really hesitant to be selecting feats, because you never get enough feats that only improve my ranged combat and allow me to use ranged weapons in melee when I want to use melee weapons in melee and take advantage of those, like the Nick property and stuff like that. I'm thinking 2 out of 4 or 2 out of 5. 2 out of 4 all of a sudden. 2 out of 5. That's what I'm thinking. You know what? I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5. So 2.5 out of 5 for Sharpshooter. I think it's just a little below average now. Shield Master, however, is better because melee feats all got better. So Shield Master, level 4 or higher, you need shield training, of course. You're going to increase your strength score by 1 to a maximum of 20, and that is a limitation. It means that if you're making a dexterity-based character, or you're making a character that, like a Blade Pact Warlock that is focusing on charisma, then increasing your strength isn't that great. But if you are making a barbarian or certain kinds of fighter, then, or even, a ranger based on strength, a stranger, then this could be a good boost for you. And here's where it's really improved. Shield Bash. If you attack a creature within 5 feet of you as part of the attack action and hit it with a melee weapon, you can immediately bash the target with your shield if it's equipped. And notice my highlighting here, this is not in the original spell, but I'm just reminding myself there is no bonus action required because the old version, you had to use your bonus action to get that benefit. Then you force the target to make a strength saving throw. Their DC is based on your strength. On a failed save, you either push the target 5 feet or cause it to have the prone condition, your choice. That, of course, will stack with any weapon mastery you're using. So if you're using, say, the push mastery, you could push them 10 feet and then another 5 feet. You can use this benefit only once on each of your turns. And then interpose shield. If you're subjected to an effect that allows you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you can take a reaction to take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw and are holding a shield. So there's a number of ways which this is better. You do lose one thing. The old version had this, if you were targeted by a spell that required a dexterity save but only targeted you, you could interpose your shield for a +2 bonus on the saving throw. But there's so few spells that require you to make a dexterity saving throw that only target you. So that almost never came up. So I actually don't really miss that going. Not requiring the bonus action for the shield bash is huge. Interposing the shield is the same as it's always been. And if I'm increasing my strength score, if I am making a strength-based character, that fits nicely. So I really like the fact that in this game, Great Weapon Master looks good now. So if I'm making a heavy weapon character, that can work really well. But Shield Master, if I'm making a shield and weapon character, that works really well. So there's just lots of feats that fit whatever weapon style you want, except maybe ranged, which doesn't get as good options unless you're wielding 2-hand crossbows. That looks pretty cool. And did I rate Shield Master? I think I forgot to rate Shield Master. It's 4 out of 5. All right, now Skill Expert. So Skill Expert is direct from Tasha's. The only difference is that we need to be 4th level or higher. We can increase any of our ability scores by 1. And then we're going to get a skill proficiency in a skill we don't have and expertise in a skill we do have. I've always liked Skill Expert because it fits on any character. It's like Tough. You throw it on any character and it's reasonably good. It's not fantastic, but I think it's worth a 3 out of 5. Now, Skulker is a feat that's changed a fair bit, and I don't know if it's better or worse. I think it's a little better, but it has changed. So we need to have a dexterity of 13 or higher. We're going to increase our dexterity by 1 to a maximum of 20. The old version did not give a dexterity increase or any increase to an ability score. We're going to get blind sight with a range of 10 feet. The old version didn't give us blind sight. Blind sight is really good. So that's a really nice benefit. And then we get advantage on any dexterity stealth check we make as part of the hide action during combat. I mean, if you're a rogue, you're probably going to be making hide checks during combat with your cunning action, and Skulker is going to give you advantage. That's great. And then Sniper, if you make an attack roll while hidden and the roll misses, making the attack roll doesn't reveal your location. That's direct from the old feat. And what's missing? What's missing is, in the old version, you could make a hide check just with the light obscurement of dim light. Or any light obscurement for that matter. And this no longer provides that. So there will be certain cases where the old Skulker would give you the ability to hide, and this one doesn't. This one, you're going to need the ability to hide in the first place, and then it's really going to help you hide. In which case, because of the ability score increase, and because we're getting blind sight, I still think it's a little bit better than the old Skulker. I think it's worth a 3 out of 5. And you're going to get tired of all these 3 out of 5s, but I think we're about to have another one, is the Slasher feat, direct from Tasha's. It's the same, but just in case you're not familiar, the prerequisite, of course, of 4th level or higher is new, but you can increase your strength or dexterity score by 1. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals slashing damage, you can reduce the speed of that creature by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. And when you score a critical hit that deals slashing damage to a creature, it has disadvantage on attack rolls until the start of your next turn. The enhanced critical on this one is very nice. The hamstring is pretty circumstantial. And overall, I think it's decent. Strength or dexterity, that's going to fit a lot of characters. So many choices, though. If I'm playing a character with a weapon and I'm using strength or dexterity, it's going to be tough to pick feats because there's so many that you're going to want. And Slasher is a 3 out of 5. It's a decent feat. Okay, Speedy. So that's the rename for the mobile feat. I will say I prefer this name to the playtest name. The playtest name was Speedster. Speedster was the playtest name. So I'm glad to see Speedy instead of Speedster. That sounded so silly to me. I'm not sure why they're not using mobile. Is it because there's some other feature that's going to be called mobile that might interfere with? I'm not sure. But what does it do? Let's see. We are going to need a dexterity or constitution score of 13 or higher. Most characters are going to have both dexterity and constitution of 13 or higher. Then you increase one of them by 1 to a maximum of 20, generally speaking, I would want to probably use this with a character that focuses on dexterity, because constitution is never really your primary ability score, it's usually your secondary ability score. Then your speed increases by 10 feet, that's the same as the old mobile feat. And dash over difficult terrain. When you take the dash action on your turn, difficult terrain doesn't cost you extra movement for the rest of that turn. That's the same as the old mobile feat. And then agile movement. Opportunity attacks have disadvantage against you. And that is a downgrade. The old mobile feat said that if you attack somebody, then they couldn't take opportunity attacks against you. I guess it's not a straight downgrade, right? Because if you don't make an attack against them, then they still have disadvantage to attack you with an opportunity attack. So I guess it's a bit of both. Overall, it is probably better than the old mobile feat because agile movement is probably a little bit worse, but then we get the ability score improvement. I think it's average, 3 out of 5. Am I giving everything 3 out of 5? It feels like I'm giving everything 3 out of 5 here. Spell Sniper. Okay, so we need spellcasting or pack magic to take this. We're going to increase any of our ability or our mental ability scores by 1. Then our attack rolls, ignore half cover and 3/4 cover for spells. And if we're within 5 feet of an enemy, it doesn't impose disadvantage on our attack rolls with spells. And then increase range. When you make a spell or cast a spell that has a range of at least 10 feet, requires you to make an attack roll, you can increase the spell's range by 60 feet. In the 2014 Player's Handbook, it doubled the range. So what this is going to do is if you're casting a spell with a very short range, that 60 feet might be more than you used to get. But if you're using a spell that has a very long range, then the 60 feet is probably less than you used to get. And there we go. I think we're going to find a feat that I don't think qualifies for a 3. Why? Well, largely the same reason as Sharpshooter. I don't think that spell attacks at range are going to be something that's overly effective in combat anymore or ever. At least Sharpshooter used to be really effective. Spell Sniper was never very effective because you're mostly giving it to cantrips. So your Firebolt goes a little further and ignores cover, but it's a Firebolt, right? So who cares? Maybe you're casting Chromatic Orb. Maybe you're upcasting Chromatic Orb. But is that really the best use of your spell slots? And even if you do it, spell slots are limited, so you're not doing it all the time. I don't think this is that great. I think it's a 2 out of 5. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. Even though the old Spell Sniper didn't give you the ability score increase, so it's probably better than the old Spell Sniper, but the old Spell Sniper would have been 1 out of 5. Telekinetic, straight from Tasha's, really no changes other than the 4th level requirement. You can increase any of your ability scores by 1. You get the Mage Hand spell. If you already have it, you increase the range with it. And as a bonus action, you can telekinetically shove an enemy that's within 30 feet, and you can either push them away or pull them towards you. They get a strength saving throw to avoid the effect, and of course your DC is based on whatever ability score you increased with the telekinetic feat. And it's always been a good feat. It's still a good feat. We still have lots of spells. In fact, we probably even have more spells now because of the changes to the Conjure spells, where pulling a creature or pushing a creature into a spell effect can cause them damage. So I think Telekinetic is good, and it's probably worth 4 out of 5. And Telepathic, also straight from Tasha's and basically the same. So we're going to increase our mental ability score by 1. We can speak telepathically to any creature we can see within 60 feet of ourselves. They cannot communicate back. This is still from Tasha's. You couldn't in Tasha's either. You have to share a language, which also was in Tasha's. You always have Detect Thoughts prepared. Detect Thoughts is a good spell. You can cast it once without a spell slot or spell components. Being able to cast it without components is nice because Detect Thoughts might be a spell that you don't want your target to know that you cast. And you must finish a long rest before you can cast it this way again. You also cast it using spell slots if you have spell slots at the appropriate level. And your spellcasting ability, of course, is the ability that you increased with this feat. I think Telepathic is a little bit on the weak side. If we think of Shadow Touched or Fey Touched, we're getting a 2nd level spell and a 1st level spell. Here we're getting a 2nd level spell and a really not great form of telepathy. I think it would have been nice if they had enhanced the telepathic utterance to give proper two-way telepathy, maybe even avoid needing to share a language, and then I think this would be a really solid feat. As it is, it's not bad, but I can't give it more than 2.5 out of 5. Warcaster, you know it, you love it, it's even better. So you need spellcasting or pack magic. You are going to increase a mental ability score with it. You never got that before. Now you will. What they take away? Nothing. Concentration, you have advantage on Constitution saving throws that you make to maintain concentration. That's actually better than it was before. Before it was only from taking damage. Now if you have to make a concentration save for any reason, like, you end up in a Sleet Storm spell or something like that, then you will get the advantage from Warcaster. So better, right? Though most of the time you make concentration saves, it is for damage. Then we have Reactive Spell. When a creature provokes an opportunity attack from you by leaving your reach, you can make a reaction to cast a spell at the creature rather than making the opportunity attack. The spell must have a casting time of 1 action and must target only that creature. Mostly the same, little tweaking of the wording, but it's basically the same feature. And then somatic components. You can perform the somatic components of spells even when you have weapons or a shield in one or both hands. This is a little frustrating to me because they didn't change the spell component rules, which means that if you want to cast a spell that has a material component and a somatic component, if you are not holding the material component or have a free hand, Warcaster still doesn't help you. It only helps you in a case of a spell that doesn't have a material component. And so that's annoying to me. I imagine a lot of tables are going to house rule the new components because, I think we were all hoping they would simplify them, and they didn't. But nevertheless, Warcaster is better than ever, and Warcaster was always a good feat. Is it 5 out of 5? If I'm a caster, it's hard not to take Warcaster. Yeah, I'm going to give it 5 out of 5. And finally, a brand new feat, Weapon Master. This one shouldn't be a big surprise, considering Weapon Mastery is new to the game. But yeah, you got to be 4th level or higher, of course. You're going to increase your strength or dexterity score by 1 to a maximum of 20. And your training with weapons allows you to use the mastery property of one kind of simple or martial weapon of your choice, provided you have proficiency with it. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can change the kind of weapon to another eligible kind. Now, naturally, if you're already playing a class that has weapon mastery, so you're a fighter, or you are a paladin, or you are a ranger, then you probably don't want Weapon Master. I mean, any of those classes are getting at least 2 weapons with Weapon Master, and that's probably enough, or Weapon Mastery. But if you're a Barbarian, or if you're a Monk, then you probably do want Weapon Mastery. And then if you don't want a multi-class, Weapon Master is a way that you can access it. So I do think this will be a good feat for Barbarians, and I think it will be a good feat for probably packed weapon-using Warlocks, and it's going to be a good feat for Monks. And so I think it is worth 3 out of 5. And that is all the general feats, and we're finally through them all. I think it was 43 of them altogether. So we're going to get into some smaller categories here. In my next video, we'll go over the fighting styles, which are now feats, and there are changes to them. Not a lot, but a couple nice quality of life changes. So I hope you'll join me for my next video. Until then, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. Let's sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.